Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Irish Illustrated Insider. I'm Tim Priester with Tim O'Malley from Irish Illustrated. We are joined by John Bryce of Football Scoop and Pete Sampson of The Athletic. We are about 30 hours or so away from kickoff for the national championship game, Notre Dame, Ohio State. We've been here in Atlanta for a couple days now. And Tim, I think we all kind of go a little bit back and forth on this matchup. I know that I have. I've settled on a score. I just don't know which team to pick. But I think it's still relatively low scoring. I think that Notre Dame has a good chance of limiting what Ohio State can do offensively. I guess my biggest question is just how much offense, how many points Notre Dame can put on the board.
Yeah, they have to limit what Ohio State can do offensively because that question is, I think, the relevant one for everyone. Can Notre Dame win a game that needs more than 27 points to win? Suppose they could. They got 27 on a really good defense in Penn State. Ohio State's a little bit better than that. I think Notre Dame has to be creative a little bit offensively to keep up. Dragging them into the water is a great idea. Like Brady Quinn said, it worked last year. This offense for Ohio State's clicking more than that offense was in mid-September. Staying aggressive is key to me, and we're going to get into this a lot more. I want to let JB and Pete talk, but I don't think it just comes down to ball control, 4th and 1. Yeah, you want to possess the football, but maybe 3rd and 1, you want to score a touchdown. Maybe 4th and 1, you want to get more than a yard where you still need 49 more yards to possess against Ohio State. I think it's going to be the interesting gameplay between Denbrock and Jim Knowles, who, if it's not Al Golden, it is Jim Knowles. If it's not Jim Knowles, it's Al Golden for the best coordinator in the country this year, in my opinion.
That's a great point, T.O. And I think in visiting with a number of staffers during Saturday's media day over at the Georgia World Congress Center, one thing I think is important to note is Notre Dame has won the coin toss each of the last 2 games. And as crazy as it sounds, that's significant for Notre Dame, the way that Notre Dame likes to operate. Notre Dame wants to know that it's going to open the second half with possession. You know, it's luck. It's quite literally the toss of a coin. Notre Dame needs to win the coin toss because I know from speaking with people yesterday, Notre Dame wants to try to find a way to steal a possession. And it's easier to kind of plan and determine with all your preparation when you can steal that possession if you know you're also opening the second half with possession.
I agree with that. Be good to get tails never fails. I mean, I think that's kind of this as the saying goes. But the chunk plays on offense to me is critical. And I know there's a question in the second segment about it. But like you had 3 30-yard pass plays against Penn State. I think you probably need at least 3 on Monday night to play the game the way you want to play it. I'm not saying Notre Dame's going to like put up 30 points, but I just think you're going to have to like break the stranglehold of Ohio State's defense a couple times with explosive plays. You know, whether that's 54 yards to Jaden Greathouse. I do like, one 32-yard catch by Aeneas Williams, that kind of thing. Like that's sort of what's most interesting to me is like how Mike Denbrock balances playing ball control, taking the air out of the football a little bit, but also setting Ohio State up for at least 3 shot plays, because I think it's probably going to take at least 3 to kind of stay on schedule, both in terms of the complementary football Notre Dame wants to play.
For the record, Pete, in 15 games, Ohio State has allowed 8 passes of 30 yards or more. So it'll be tough. Yeah, and I know they had them against Penn State, 32-yarder, 36-yarder, 54-yarder, all very, very significant. And that would be to Notre Dame's great benefit. I know we're going to talk about topics, and we got questions that are going to overlap because now it's all focused on this game. We're not going to have some ancillary questions about some other stuff here. And so I looked. Interesting to talk to Charles Jaguar yesterday, who, Tim, remember we said that on a field, in person, he looks a lot longer, a lot larger than he does on the field. But he'll be playing left tackle, and I asked him if, what's your confidence level? How confident are you moving from right guard to left tackle? And he just looked at me and said, whenever I'm on the football field, I'm confident. So that's good because you're going to need that against JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer on the other side going against Emil Wagner. I feel better about that matchup. I think Wagner can generally keep him in front of him, but Can you run the football? Can you have any kind of, and again, I don't think it's a number, how many yards you rush for. It's, do you convert that third and 1, 3rd and 2 after you struggled in the previous series and you've got to hold on to the football? Time of possession isn't something that we talked a whole lot about. And I agree with you guys. I think Notre Dame still has to stay aggressive, but I think more than ever, and JB, I think you said this yesterday, I think more than ever, you're going to lean a little bit more towards a time of possession game.
Well, I mean, look, the best, as cliche as it is, the best defense against Ohio State's offense is that offense not even being on the field, because as we all discussed, I think at various points of conversation yesterday in and around media day, Ohio State quite literally can score on any given play. It just takes Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Egbuka or even Carnell Tate slipping behind one defender and they're gone. And we just haven't seen that with any consistency from Notre Dame's offense over the course of this year. And we've seen it over the course of the season for Ohio State, and we've seen it at an even greater elevated level during Ohio State's playoff run. So, again, that's why a couple of turnovers, and I know we're going to talk about our keys to the game and all of that, but it's Notre Dame, just like I said, going into Georgia, I think has to be +2 in turnovers, and the idea of stealing a possession, I think, is incredibly compelling and something that Notre Dame also needs to do.
I want to stay on this theme because I think it goes to my not unsung but necessary player in this. Jeremiah Love, his longest gain since that 98-yard run, for as tough as he has been, is 9 yards. It doesn't matter how many people say he's Jeremiah Love. He's not. It's a 9-yard gain is the longest he's had. I'm going to assume he can't go for 75 right now. Jadarian Price has to. You just mentioned, JB, you just mentioned 3 guys that can do it easily for Ohio State. What about the guy that did it last year against Notre Dame? Trevion Henderson could do that pretty easily too.
He did it last week against Texas. He housed the screen call right before the half.
Jadarian Price needs to have a big game like he did against USC and Texas A&M. And I use those two. I mean, he had other big days, but those guys have defensive players that can run. And he needs to have a carry where he gets a giant chunk to set up a touchdown for Notre Dame, because otherwise you're relying on Jaden Greathouse making those 2 moves again on a better secondary. You're relying on Mitchell Evans, who is the #1 known quantity to Jim Knowles in this football game, other than Jeremiah Love, to make more plays than he has all season. It's you're relying on Faison. Jadarian Price needs to do it. I talked to Dylan McCall about it. He's kind of indicated that, he didn't go down my line of thinking that Jadarian Price gets stuffed too much. He mentioned maybe back in August he was. But 28 playoff carries, 16s are stuffed. He can't do that because then they can't keep him on the field. I love Aeneas Williams, but Aeneas Williams is, look at that giant play for 15 yards. Look at that great catch and run for 36 yards. Price is go. And I just think they need that once in this game.
28 carries, 16 stuffs. I mean, that's an indictment, man. That's
3.
That's
the run
good.
Defenses are awesome. Indiana was great technically.
Yeah,
Run defense.
no, they were.
Georgia and Penn State, but still, you gotta get out of that.
And yet, and again, we're going to talk over some questions here in the second half, but can Notre Dame limit Ohio State to 20 points? Yeah, I think they can. But you can't have the explosives. And I mean, I think they can. I'm not saying.
Tim, I think that's when you get into time of possession. Like they limited them to 17 last year because they had 8 possessions. If they have 12 possessions, I don't think they
it's
20.
Exactly right. And I want to reiterate something that we said on Instant Analysis yesterday. And the more I watch of Ohio State and think about it, the more Emeka Egbuka is the one that really scares you. And as you point out, Tim, he had 2 good games against Notre Dame the last 2 years. 16 catches, 186 yards, a touchdown, 31-yarder last year. You've got to limit the
80 after the catch, by the way.
Oh my God, yeah. And that's a function of the position that he plays, because he's catching crossing routes and stuff, and it's difficult. But you still have to feel pretty confident that Notre Dame is the kind of defense that can stop explosives. And if you make Ohio State go 12 plays, 80 yards with their offensive line against Notre Dame's defensive front, I think Notre Dame can have quite a bit of success there.
Yeah, that's just not the game they want to play, right? Like you look back at the 8 possessions that Ohio State had in the Notre Dame game last year, versus they had 12 against Oregon, 10 against Michigan, 10 against Texas. I realized Michigan, they lost, and they were intent on just pounding the ball up the middle for some odd reason. But you've got to somebody got to bait Ohio State into playing that game. And I'm so fascinated to sort of see, like, does Al Golden stick to his guns with sort of the coverage schemes that they show on Monday night, or do they sort of try to get ahead of it and give Will Howard something that he's not expecting, and then, kind of get him in a position where he's seeing ghosts a little bit?
I think it's one of the great questions of the game, Pete. I
mean,
really
you got
do.
it, because I think that as much as you would obviously like to take away everything, like, I think you concede Emeka Egbuka finishes the game with 8 catches for 97 yards. I think you just have to almost accept that if you're Notre Dame, because if you don't, then Jeremiah Smith has 3 catches for 120 yards, or Travion Henderson snaps off a 61-yard touchdown run. Like, I think you let Egbuka and Tate, quote unquote, beat you, but you can't let Jeremiah Smith, Travion Henderson, and Quinton Judkins do the same.
And I think it's interesting in talking to people on both sides of this matchup over my time here in Atlanta is how much Ohio State people expect that Notre Dame is really going to try to steal or borrow as much as it can from Michigan's and even Nebraska's defensive game plans against the Buckeyes. And similarly speaking, I think Ohio State has kind of licked its chops when it saw what Jaden Maiava and USC did. That's the refrain that I've heard the most. And in talking with people, they're like, yeah, they're good on defense, but explain to me how USC did this. And then another X factor, I think, for as good as Notre Dame's defense is, and for as good as we all think Xavier Watts is, and talking with people, and I've got an anonymous scouting piece going up Monday on Football Scoop from coaches around the country that have played both teams. Caleb Downs is the name that you just hear so much, and they talk about how much they never knew snap after snap where Caleb Downs was going to line up, because they can bring him so close to the line of scrimmage. They said they put him in the alley. He can cover people. I thought that was interesting. So that will be part of the cat and mouse game, is how much does Ohio State move around Caleb Downs, and can Ohio State make Riley Leonard see ghosts the way that we know Al Golden has the ability week after week to make opposing quarterbacks see ghosts?
I wanted to bring up what Pete said about seeing ghosts, and Bryce just said it there. Good job, JB. You led into my question. I looked up seeing ghosts by pressure. So when kept clean, Will Howard was 77% passer, and Riley Leonard was a 73% passer. Different depths, obviously different abilities, but those are the percentages. When pressured, Will Howard drops 22%. Riley Leonard drops 32% when pressured. It is very important Riley Leonard doesn't see too many ghosts or understands what's going on and when the right time to bail is, because I feel like we're putting it all on what can Notre Dame's secondary do to Will Howard. It is pretty important that Riley Leonard doesn't see ghosts or understands what he's seeing a little bit and knows when to get out of that pocket, because he did not trust – I wouldn't either, not blaming him. He did not trust last week's pocket. He was back there. He was looking at it. Anyone near him, there was a problem, and he wasn't getting away as he usually does.
And that's fine, right? I mean, that's
I wouldn't trust it either at that point.
Yeah, you've got to do what you have to do, and that's fine. If he wants to bail, let him bail and run. I do think, and it's cliche talking about turnover margin all the time, but I mean that's probably, of all the stats, probably one of the single most consistent determining factors in the outcome of the game. It wasn't last week for Notre Dame, but the fact of the matter is that Notre Dame has 19 interceptions. And Ohio State has 10, and you have to pick Will Howard. You have to. This is if you can score 13, 17 points on offense and then create a couple more scoring opportunities with your special teams and defense. And Will Howard has turned the ball over against the better defenses that he's faced, and Notre Dame's one of those, and they have to get one of those.
Yeah, Notre Dame's first in takeovers with 32, Ohio State's 54th. So that's not
right.
horrible, but that's what they are.
No.
There's not many differentiators like that one. Notre Dame,
there really are.
When we say Notre Dame has to turn it over, they have to turn it over because that is their DNA. People have been pushing back on me saying, well, they didn't get enough turnovers against Louisville. They still won. All right, Louisville's sweet and awesome, aren't they? So they're playing Ohio State. Like, they need some turnovers here. And they didn't win the turnover battle against Penn State, but they got the number one turnover that mattered the most.
They did.
So,
they did.
Like, if they get a turnover in the last minute when this game is close, I like Notre Dame's chances.
Yeah.
And against Louisville, let's not forget that maybe they didn't generate a ton, but they generated one right inside the 10-yard line that spurred that crazy spurt in the second quarter that transformed that game forever.
To me, this is a real outlier stat. Tim, you're right. There aren't many outlier stats for
they're
Ohio
tight
State.
most places. Yeah,
they are
tight.
But one of them on offense is that they're 57th in the country in third down offense. I'm really, and that I like. There's no other explanation other than their offensive line has been insufficient. It's not like they don't have a trigger man. It's not like they don't have running backs. It's not like they don't have receivers. The only
Where do I throw?
Right. The only explanation is offensive line play. And the two names I've been saying all week, damn, if they had Traore and they had Mills, you'd feel a lot more confident about Notre Dame's chances. But the fact of the matter is they haven't had Mills, they haven't had Traore, and they're still playing good defense up front. So that's Al Golden creating situations, and he has to create some more situations against an offensive line that is, if not as equally unsettled as Notre Dame's, it's been disrupted throughout the entire season.
And I think, Pete, you were on this one, like a fourth down stop and a fourth down get is creating a possession, creating a turnover in many instances too. Like a fourth down stop in this game.
Fourth down stop is for sure.
Is a game-changing situation. And a fourth down, if you're going on your own 48, is a bit of a turnover too, because you could put them back in the 5. And then JB, you've been on it all year. I mean, special teams is the way to create something. They couldn't. I'm sure there was something they wanted to put in against Penn State, but maybe Penn State was just too sound and they couldn't do it. But I have a feeling you almost forcing the issue is too much, but they sure did force the issue against Georgia. And I feel like they might want to look to force the issue a little bit here.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not necessarily a fake punt or a fake field goal or anything. Yeah. Can they block a kick? Particularly, can they block a field goal? And then another thing that was pointed out to me to take note of in this game is that by and large, Ohio State over the course of the season has been very much they kick all their kicks deep. They're good at touchbacks, and they don't return a lot of kicks. They fair catch a lot of their kickoffs and are content to start operating their offense at the 25. So I'm very intrigued to kind of see if they stick to that DNA or if they maybe try to do something creative and different on a kickoff or something along those lines.
I'm pretty sure this is correct. Their longest kick return of the year is 23 yards.
Urban Meyer's rolling around in mansion right now. Yes,
he is. Hey, looking to upgrade your wardrobe. Founded by Notre Dame alum Go Wang. You've seen ESQ's custom clothing on the player walk and all of your favorite players and coaches. With more than a decade of making the best bespoke clothing available, ESQ will help you look and feel your best. From a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt or bomber jacket, or that perfect tuxedo for wedding season, check out esqclothing.com and book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention Irish Illustrated and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. Coming up next is Burning Up the Boards, segment 2.
Welcome back to segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. Our first question is first-time caller, CMU Pens fan. What was the moment post NIU where you said to yourself, okay, this team can truly go on a real run?
Well, it wasn't.
Wasn't Purdue? Okay.
No, it was. I mean, it was. No, it wasn't. And it wasn't Louisville either because you're still concerned about consistency. It was Georgia Tech for me. I mean, that's game 7 on the road, handle some adversity, caught the break of not having to face that great quarterback, Haynes King, that they have. But at that point, you're looking at Navy, Florida State, Virginia, Army, USC. I mean, at that point, you're thinking, okay, they've got a great chance to win the rest of their games. And, it was, for me, it was Louisville and at Georgia or in the stadium that's right off my right shoulder here.
Georgia Tech, you mean? Not Louisville, Georgia Tech right here.
Georgia Tech, yeah, yep. I'm sorry. So, yeah, for me, that's when it was.
I guess I would go Louisville, but I can't sit here and be like, oh, man, after that game, like, they're just going to roll through the rest of the schedule. Because at that point, we were like 3 wins removed from Northern Illinois, and you didn't know if Marcus Freeman was going to find the level of consistency as a head coach that you just have to win. How many have they won? 27 games in a row now? I've lost track, but like
It feels like that.
Just the idea that they were just going to answer the bell every week was not something that I thought after Louisville. Maybe I started thinking about it after Georgia Tech, but like it sounds strange to say, but I'm not sure there was a moment this season where I was like, okay, they're going to go on a run.
Well,
frankly, it was after A&M, which was obviously not true.
Yeah.
I think, for me, the response that we all saw, as bad as Purdue was, and they were historically cataclysmically bad, I still think that provided a glimpse of how Notre Dame intended to respond over the course of the season. Now, I couldn't say that Purdue became that statement moment for me because of all the injuries in that game. And you just thought, holy crap, what are they going to do now? Ashton Craig, how long is Billy Schrouth going to be out? You knew Botello was bad. And so at that point in time, you thought they could do it, but then you wondered how much can they seriously overcome injuries. And now here we are getting ready to cover a national title game in 32 hours, and the injuries are even more pronounced. But I thought when you looked at their schedule, and we all talked about it preseason, if they got past A&M, we felt they could go 12-0. So even though they blew it the next week with a loss to Northern Illinois, we'd already assessed their schedule, and every one of us believed they could win the final 10 games on their schedule after Northern Illinois. So kind of like Pete, you had to keep seeing it repeat itself because Notre Dame had not done that. But I think for me, I always believed that Notre Dame could do that by the way that we had assessed things and the fact that Florida State stunk and USC had its own struggles. And so everything kind of in some ways for Notre Dame's opponents, things lined up well for Notre Dame. Obviously, within Notre Dame's own ecosystem, the injuries continued to mount over the course of the season, and that's why I think it's testament to the depth and what Marcus Freeman and Chad Bowden and all those people have done collectively in the last 4 years to make that roster so much better 1 through 85. And you guys know it so much better than me, but there's just so much more team speed for Notre Dame, especially in the back seven, than what I've seen Notre Dame have in ages.
Because of the Miami of Ohio first half in game, the Purdue kind of wore off for me. I mean, they led 3-0 with 2 minutes left in the first half against Miami of Ohio.
They got booed off the field.
They got booed off the field. I did not think they were going to make a run there. USC always sat there for me, so I never thought they were going to make a run other than I thought they'd make a run to USC. In other words, USC was always a problem for me no matter what happened to them, win,
agreed.
backup starters. I was always worried about the USC game, so I could say never because I knew they were going to beat Indiana. My gut told me they'd beat Georgia for no really great reason other than Georgia isn't, Georgia's their backup quarterback and Riley Mills is out. I felt like they'd beat Penn State all year until the week of it. Like I looked at Penn State all year. I was like, gosh, they finally got good. And now Notre Dame's playing. I've been ripping on this team all season long. So I'm just amazed that they have made this run. I think it's fantastic. And that's why you don't want to count them out against Ohio State either, because Ohio State's the best team they faced, obviously, but you're supposed to face the best team in the championship game too. I mean, you could argue Notre Dame's the best team Ohio State faced, the way Oregon went out there and laid an absolute egg in a playoff game.
Maybe I am a little using a little revisionist, kind of perspective on this. Did we think they'd beat Navy and Army? Yeah, but did we think that they would hammer them?
I
Certainly
thought they'd hammer Army, never Navy. I thought Navy was going to be a pain the whole time. Yeah.
So I think that was we never thought they'd lose to Florida State or Virginia.
No.
Of course, those two being at home. Tim, we had a question right above that. I don't know if you, anyway, it's from Max1515. Agree or disagree? Mike Denbrock is the most important person Monday night for an Irish win.
I disagree. I thought Mike Denbrock called the best half of football he's called all season for Notre Dame last week in the second half against Penn State. But he can call a brilliant game, and Notre Dame's players still have to execute. And Ohio State is plenty capable enough to, as Tim O'Malley would say, bundle their plans. And so, Mike Denbrock's got to have another fine game, but the moment won't be too large for him. He's way too experienced. He's way too veteran. He's way too sure in what he wants to do and his relationship with Riley Leonard. So Mike Denbrock's important, but I don't think by any stretch he's the most important person Monday night.
Actually, I agree with Max 1515 because I think that Mike Denbrock's ability to manage Notre Dame's offense is also one of their best defensive game plans. And so, how you sort of try to keep Ohio State defensively on a string, control clock, but be aggressive. Like, it's the task in front of Denbrock, I think, is incredibly difficult. And how he masters that or does not, I think will be the most important sort of impact on who actually wins on Monday night.
I have a crazy one for you. I think it's just because I want to pigeonhole his name into this podcast otherwise. I guess Howard Cross.
That's fair.
Howard Cross last year destroyed Ohio State with 5 pressures and 6 run stuffs and a pass breakup. He hasn't been able to do that since the end of the 2023 season in a football game. And if he could do Howard Cross on 4 plays and play consistently for the next 50, I think those are the 4 plays you need out of Notre Dame's defense, because he is everybody forgets, what's Jeremiah Love's percentage? What's everybody else's percentage? Howard Cross is nothing %. He's just out there running around on a bad ankle trying to help as much as he can. If Howard Cross has those extra days and he can create havoc on 4 plays and just play football on the other 50, he's the differentiator that they don't have without Traore and Botello and Riley Mills and Jeremiah Love. I really think Cross is, if he just Howard Cross with 0 pressures and 1 tackle like he was against Penn State, then Notre Dame is going to get run off the field.
I tend to lean more to what Pete is saying in terms of Denbrock. He's got to call a really good game. Now, we're all guilty of it when a play doesn't work. You naturally blame the offensive coordinator, and that isn't reality. But the problem is that most of us on the outside looking in, something bad happens in a play, and when it's happening live, you don't know exactly why it happened. Was it a bad call, or is it just executed poorly? We don't know. But I think he's got to do something. He's got to do something with that defensive line. And I mentioned this in instant analysis, that talking to him yesterday about what he's got to do. What do you do when your offensive line is just getting beat at the point of attack? And he talked about, they've been predominantly a zone scheme team, but they're going to have to change that up a little bit and do some misdirection stuff, which I think is the best way to get that defensive line. You get them going one way, you get them going the other way. What's the best way to neutralize a group like that? I think their 2 interior defensive linemen are really vastly underrated. And quite frankly, they were underrated by me when I went in to start watching Ohio State's film. Those 2 guys do not get pushed off the football. They may get stood up a little bit, but like getting pushed off the football is really, really difficult to do that with those 2 guys. So I think Denbrock's got to be very creative. He says, he doesn't feel pressure other than he wants to give his players the best chance to win. But I think he has to call a great game, and then hand in hand with that, his players are going to have to follow his lead and execute it very, very well.
Yeah, good point on their DTs, TP, because Tyleek Hamilton is really, really good. I mean, he is elite. He's projected pretty much consensus first-round pick in the 2025 draft here, upcoming at the end of April, 1st of May. And Notre Dame had some problems last week with the interior of Penn State's D-line, and this is a better interior D-line.
Since I was able to shoehorn Howard Cross into this podcast, I'm going to do the same thing here. Maltese Irish says, what are your biggest concerns for Charles Jaugiso starting at left tackle? While Packy P adds, did Notre Dame lose its left tackle or get its left tackle back? I'll let you guys go on that one, and I'll add the other guy I want to make sure gets in.
Well, it's an interesting question from Packy P, because I was in a conversation yesterday. I mean, Anthony Knapp did a great job, start 15 games, all the credit in the world to him, but he was not their choice. You're a true freshman offensive lineman.
Right. Yeah.
It's very difficult to beat somebody. Yeah. It's very difficult to beat somebody out in camp, and the perfect storm for Anthony Knapp for it to happen. But, I think Jaugiso is certainly capable here. It's going to require really, really good technique against Tui Maloau. And my concern with a young offensive lineman is always lunging. Now, I don't know that Tui Maloau is necessarily the kind of guy that makes you lunge, because he kind of does it with a combination of speed and size and strength. But young offensive linemen without a lot of experience want to want to make something happen. As soon as they lunge, they make a mistake. So for me, that's that technique, that technical part of the way Jagusa plays against number 44 is at the top of my list.
I guess I'd be surprised if it made that much of a difference in this game between Knapp and Jagusa. Like one is more physically gifted than the other. The other one is obviously a lot more experienced. The long haul, I'd like Jagusa a lot more than Knapp, but either one was going to have to go against a 10-year NFL defensive lineman on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna lose a bunch of those matchups. But I just like athletically and physically. I mean, Knapp and Jagusa were together at media day yesterday, like just sitting on a bleachers, one next to each other. Like it's not hard to figure out which one you would want out there as your starting left tackle, because one is just physically superior than the other.
I agree with that. I think in the moment Notre Dame regained its preferred starting left tackle, I still think the best tackle on the roster is Gerby Lambert. I still think he's maybe the future at that position. But in this moment, I think you prefer the size and physicality and the raw ability of Jagusa for this game. And I also think you have to plan on helping him out some too. I mean, I can't get over the fact that last week was the first time he played meaningful snaps in 377 days. He did an admirable job. He told me that he was beat to pieces the next day and unbelievably sore. He said, now, today here at media day, I'm completely fine. I feel fresh. I'm ready to rock. But he took an absolute beating last week. It won't be quite the same beating this week, but he'll have a lot demanded of him. And I think that ties into the Denbrock question. What does Denbrock do to help those guys out, particularly on the left flank?
I'm going to let you guys talked about Jagusa. So Tim, the reason I brought this up was Jagusa just left right guard. That's where I think Notre Dame lost something here, because Spindler's going to fight through it. They may have to go to Pendleton. And I went to Joe Rudolph and immediately asked him about Pendleton. And I didn't say I thought Pendleton didn't play especially well when he got it against IU, but Joe Rudolph actually volunteered. Sam Pendleton has been working as the backup left guard, the backup right guard, and the backup center. He barely had any reps at right guard leading into IU because Charles Jagusa came back to work as the backup right guard. So they basically said, all right, Jagusa, backup right guard, Pendleton, backup left guard, backup center. Now Pendleton has been working as a backup right guard again while Jagusa is working at left tackle. So if Spindler can't do it, because everybody saw Spindler get hurt on the play he got hurt on against Penn State, I think there's a little bit more feeling that Pendleton can step in than there was in IU. I found out, I didn't realize that Spindler went up to Rudolph at halftime of the IU game and goes, I can't go anymore. My ankle's not allowing me to do what you need me to do. And they went to Sam. Yeah.
If you watched Spindler at the end of the first half in the final drive, he was crawling upfield, and so I knew something. You knew something was wrong there. Question from NDFB: who has the advantage with the coordinators in this game?
I mean, I think it's kind of hard not to answer Ohio State, right?
It's Chip Kelly versus Mike Denbrock. I mean, don't you think if you were voting for the Broyles, you vote for either Knowles or Golden this year?
Yeah.
So then those guys are a wash. They have to be a wash, I think. Those two are a wash. So Kelly versus Denbrock. Yeah. I mean, Biaggi's got the advantage.
Oh,
I was going to say.
Throw him in there too.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I'm not sure if that's the spirit of this question, but
probably not.
Yeah. I think it's closer to a wash than anything. I think if you are assessing all three, I would probably still lean Notre Dame 2 of the 3 with, to your point, Pete, Chip Kelly, an edge, not a dominant edge, but Chip Kelly an edge over Denbrock, just because Chip Kelly is he's been a head coach in both college power conferences and in the NFL, and he's considered like one of the offensive innovators of this century.
Tim, what do you think?
Well, I was saying, if you throw Biaggi in there, he has a clear advantage. I think I would give Chip Kelly the slight advantage over Denbrock too. I mean, if you gave Denbrock Chip Kelly's players or Jaden Daniels, we wouldn't be talking about who has the advantage here. But the Golden Knowles thing is unique to me, and I want to bring this up too. Another shoehorn. Jim Knowles on his press conference, they asked him about Notre Dame's defense. And he gave the best question I've ever heard, because that's a weird question to ask the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
He said, I started with my team when we found out who our opponent was, or when we won our game. Our defense needs to outplay their defense.
Oh,
that was his
interesting.
charge to his defensive team. So those two guys, Knowles and Golden, man, all I know is I would not want to scheme against them.
Yeah,
There'd be some stuff going on in college. The college QB.
that's why true freshmen don't start at quarterback very often. I look at Golden versus Kelly as like Godzilla versus King Kong, or whoever goes against each other in those movies. But
Golden's probably like, Tim Priester, give me Benjamin Morris as my third corner. We'll see who has a better coordinating job in this game.
I'd choose Jim Knowles over Mike Denbrock slightly, because I just think that his background is really extensive and really good. By the way, tip of the hat, Mike Denbrock with Jaden Daniels in the NFL, because he did one hell of a job with him. There's no doubt about that. But the other matchup is great versus great. I think Mike Denbrock's a very good offensive coordinator. I think Jim Knowles has established a little bit more than that, especially the last. It was his first year at Ohio State was a little bit of a struggle, but the last two have not been.
I don't know if it's the spirit of the question, Pete Sampson, but Marty Biaggi has to make this the spirit of the question, because they do need a Marty Biaggi. They need a Biaggi moment, I think, in this game. From Sully Patrick, another one on Golden. Is this if this is the last game for Al Golden? What is your favorite memory of Golden as defensive coordinator at Notre Dame? Let's make this one quick.
Mine was when I got mad at him and stormed away from the table.
That was my favorite memory too.
Mine was yesterday when he let his guard down completely, because somebody asked him about either that or when I was with Pete and we talked about scoring the touchdown against Notre Dame, and he said, did Xavier Watson Kaiser tell you to run their asses over too? But he let his guard down yesterday. Somebody said, I'm from the Jersey Shore, and I'll put it on our board if somebody wants to see it for people from New Jersey. I sent it to my friends. 300 words of people go on vacation. I go to New Jersey. Growing up tough, growing up in Jersey City with his parents grew up in Jersey. It was an ode to his youth. Threw in Springsteen and Bon Jovi. That was my favorite Al Golden moment right there.
Yeah, mine was going to be him saying that he had did those guys tell you I'd run them over as well. So that was a splendid moment. But look, I mean, he's been elite. He's been remarkably elite for Notre Dame. It's hard not to point to last week against Penn State and have that be your favorite memory. The fact that Christian Gray made a sensational play to give Notre Dame the chance to win in regulation, but it was a coverage they'd literally never used until that moment. Again, referring to the anonymous scout piece that I've got coming Monday on Football Scoop, multiple coaches that I talked to said every time we faced them, either this year or in recent years, Al Golden brought something out on game day that we literally had never seen on film before. I think that's pretty damn impressive. Is it going to be the last? That's the $1 million question. The ball is definitely in Al Golden's court. I've had it stressed to me that he is not just a finalist. He is the clear top target for the Bengals job.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Pete, I don't know if that really was your answer as to your favorite moment. With
I was
Golden,
going to actually, I enjoyed when I asked him a question about mental error, like how often do you get all 11 guys doing exactly like there were, and he's like, I don't know, and he was like, was that rhetorical or not? Like he's like, oh, we got a professor over here. Like
the professor line was great.
Yeah,
so.
That was pretty funny. I would say probably the most one was seeing him on the field after both the Sugar and Orange Bowls, like how emotional he got after those games was pretty cool. Heck, even like him talking to us, I think Priester and I, you and I were together with Al in the sort of corridor outside the locker room after Georgia. Like that was pretty cool. I do think this will be his last game at Notre Dame. I think he's had a hell of a run here. He left the defense better than he found it, which is a hell of a thing to say considering the previous three defense coordinators. So tip of the hat, Al Golden.
Yeah, I think there's a greater than 50% chance that he will go. And it's just, he was with the Bengals. I mean, it's a great opportunity for him. It's hard to, as we've learned, it's difficult to keep great defensive coordinators. 3 years is maxing out. But I do want to say this about him. And I didn't know him but I had impressions of him, and I always thought, you know what, that guy looks like he'd be a great fit at Notre Dame. And Jack Swarbrick ended up finding out the same thing. So when he said that, it kind of confirmed to me that Al Golden was a really good fit for Notre Dame, and I absolutely believe that he is, and I've got a great deal of respect for him. He kind of rolled his eyes at me one time after a question, or looked away like, is this guy crazy? And I snapped. What can I say? I snapped, but I have a great deal of respect for Al Golden. The coordinator is an easy thing to respect, but the man, I think he's a top-notch quality human being.
It was, I want to point out it was last year, but he looked at me when he rolled his eyes about what you were doing. So that was a bit of an awkward moment too. He looked at me like, is he crazy?
What the hell's wrong with him?
Maybe he is. I don't know. But
O'Malley's like, I got stories about this guy.
I got stories, man. But he did it to Eric Hansen too, because Hansen asked about Riley Leonard when they were about to play Brennan Armstrong, and Gold looks at me like, that guy's this guy, Riley Leonard on Notre Dame's team now. Yeah. But Sully Patrick did not want all of our personal stories of Al Golden, because the best Al Golden moment on the field, Caleb Williams, number 2. Come on. Mid-October 2023 was freaking incredible.
He schooled them. You would have thought that performance alone would have dissuaded the Bears from choosing him first and choosing Jaden Daniels, who was, by the way, my number one, who I thought should have been the number 1 pick. We have a question from Eddie Davis. Which
Convenient
Jeremiah?
Time to say that, Tim Priester.
Yeah. Which Jeremiah has the biggest impact? Jeremiah Love or Jeremiah Smith?
Smith, because Love is not Love.
Yeah, Smith, because I think you have to build your defense around him. Love is, while supremely talented, as O'Malley's noted, is not like full on Jeremiah Love 12-yard aerial hurdle USC Jeremiah Love. So yeah, Jeremiah Smith probably would get the nod for me here, just in terms of like everything's got to sort of focus around him.
Well, you guys are talking the biggest threat. Are you saying he's going to have the biggest he will have the more productive day?
Jeremiah Smith to me is a more gravitational player in this game than Jeremiah Love. That's how I'd put it.
I think Jeremiah Smith demands more from a game planning standpoint going into the game, so he's more important in that regard. I think on Monday night, Jeremiah Love is far more important for Notre Dame's ability to win than Jeremiah Smith. Ohio State just proved it could win with basically out having anything from Jeremiah Smith. 1 catch for 3 yards against Texas. Ohio State, the collective sum of everything on Ohio State's offense outside of Jeremiah Smith is still a hell of a lot of NFL players. And so for that reason, I'm Jeremiah Love being more important Monday night.
So here's Jeremiah Smith's game-by-game productivity. First in Akron, Western Michigan, early ones. But anyway, 92 yards. He scored a touchdown in each of the first 7 games. And then first game, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. Second game, 119 yards, a touchdown. Third game, 70-1, 83-1, 89-1, 101, 70-1. He produces every game. I feel that the little bit of extra time, we're going to see a little bit of the old Jeremiah Love. Unfortunately, he's got to go against a great defensive line. I think we'll see a little bit of the old Jeremiah Love, but it's awfully difficult to prevent Smith from being great. And if you do, Abuka's going to get you in trouble, I believe.
Next from Siggles. Do Price and Williams need to have their snaps inverted? Aeneas Williams, he means. Can an offense that has been abysmal in 3rd and 7 afford Price's stuffs? We've gotten away with it due to stellarity in special teams, but hasn't Williams' play justify getting significantly more snaps than Price? Even if this scenario increases the likelihood of a Price transfer, that doesn't matter at all. And he says, and I really like Price.
Yeah, I agree. But to your point, Tim, the breakaway potential is too great just to turn away from him. We love Aeneas Williams. He's productive, but he's not the breakaway threat that Price is. And in a game like this, the value of a breakaway run by Jadarian Price is pretty hard to measure how important that would be. John, I'm sorry for cutting you off.
No, I was honestly looking at the rundown, trying to figure out where this question is, because I'm not always the best listener. And it's not
Tim,
on.
I'm sorry.
It's not on my Smith. I was sitting here I was sitting here prepared to answer in case ND loses. I don't want to give the whole question away. So I couldn't figure out where the hell this question came from.
I have a lot of
today-
run checks in my offense.
to me, it's
There's a lot of
Jadarian
checks.
Price.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to me, for the reasons just enumerated, it's Price. Like, I don't know if Price can run our Ohio State defense, but he can run 40 yards. And I don't think Aeneas Williams can uncork a 40-yard game on the Ohio State defense. And Notre Dame has.
We are running into some Wi-Fi problems that amazingly we have been able to avoid up to this point. JB, you got cut off there a little bit, but we'll just keep moving forward, Pete.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the 3rd and 7 point, like, nobody's good in 3rd and 7. You're especially not going to be good in 3rd and 7 against Ohio State. But if there was a running back on the field on 3rd and 7, I would prefer it to be Aeneas Williams to Jadarian Price. Because I just think he gives you something Jadarian Price doesn't in that specific moment. If it's 2nd and 6, I'm fine handing the ball to Jadarian Price and taking my chances that it might be a 1-yard gain or it might be a 50-yard gain.
Siggles is saying Jadarian Price is putting them in 3rd and 7, making Aeneas Williams come in. That maybe they should stay out of 3rd and 7. But I agree that I want Price in this game. But I watched the Penn State game in the second half, thinking, quit putting him back in the game. Aeneas Williams is your alternate running back right now.
Yeah,
so,
I think it's a good Pete. That's the absolute right call. And on 3rd down, Aeneas Williams is a proven player, and he does it time and time again. But you still have to. I guess when you give it to your Price, has got to be on 1st down. The problem, though, is it's 2nd and 11 then sometimes. So
I will say, I just want to say this about Price. Like, looking over the box score from the Georgia, he had 10 carries for 37 yards. I actually thought he played really well.
I thought he played great against them, but not against IU and Penn State.
So if Jadarian Price finished this game with 10 carries for 40 yards, I wouldn't say that would be like, well, we should have changed up who was playing when and how much.
No, he was huge against Georgia. Absolutely.
Really hard. That's what
I guess I got cut out. Sorry, a little bit. I was just trying to say, I think it's Price in this game because you need a guy that can outrun the Ohio State defense for 40 or 50 yards. And Aeneas Williams can't do that. And I think Notre Dame's path to victory has to have some significant chunk moments.
Yeah. Tim, was there another question?
I'll tell him when we get to it. Yeah, JB added another one. We have another pass check coming in here at the end of it, okay? But it's a good question for you. So you guys got to adjust on the fly, man. There's no...
Head on a swivel, JB.
It's not even game day, and like the walkthrough is not supposed to be harder than game day.
We have 24 hours to put in the final game plan. It's happening right now. Okay, there is. No, it's just like leading up to the Orange Bowl. From AC Irish, this is morbid. In case ND loses or gets blown out, what positive things can the team carry forward into next year? We've already destroyed our season. It's terrible. Has ND done enough to silence the haters, even with a loss?
Oh, haters!
There's nothing that. The haters, the Notre Dame
you don't think
haters.
Cam Newton would be convinced if Notre Dame lost 45-10?
The Notre Dame haters will live on forever. I bet you can probably say that about any program. You can't get blown out. They won't get blown out. You can't get blown out because that really does really negatively impacts the impression as you carry out of this season. You can't do that. It should not happen. It shouldn't happen. I don't care what your injury situation is. As far as Notre Dame has come in the situation they're in, and as well as they're playing overall as a team, that shouldn't happen. You can't let that happen. The haters are always going to hate, but that's with every team. I mean,
are you like quoting Taylor Swift over there, Priester?
I don't know Taylor Swift line, so. If you're telling me that I did, then I guess I'm going to have to believe you.
Sorry,
spiraling down.
Is she a hater's hate?
Spiraling down. Right
okay.
I think Notre Dame has put enough soul into the season with the Penn State and Georgia games that it will be viewed completely differently. Like, let's just say Clemson 2018 happens tomorrow. I still think Notre Dame would be viewed significantly differently than they would have back then. Alabama maybe not Alabama 2012, but there's enough, like, they've put a spine, they put a soul in the season, whatever metaphor you want to use, that is completely different than anything that I've covered in 24 years on the beat. So I think that they will, if you thought Notre Dame didn't belong here, that's fine. But I just think that the rational college football fans or a rational media member looks at Notre Dame a lot differently than they did a month ago.
I thought that TP was quoting Young Buck there with.
I don't even know who the hell you're talking about.
Don't act like you're supposed to act cool now, TP. Come
on. You're telling me that would make me cool? No, I don't.
There's no.
It would
I do
help.
not think so.
It would help.
It would help. It would help.
I think I'm with Pete on this. Like, I don't think Notre Dame gets blown out whatsoever. But look, if Ohio State could go blow out the number 1 seeded team in this tournament, the only undefeated team of note going into this tournament, then you absolutely have to believe that if everything falls wrong and there's been so many injuries mount on this team that Ohio State could win this game pulling away. I don't expect that. And my pick will reveal that momentarily. I do think the narrative around Notre Dame football has changed. I think that it will stay changed regardless of Monday night. Now it can be cemented if Notre Dame finds a way to win Monday night.
Yeah.
It will cement the change that it's a new era of Notre Dame glory. And with this charismatic, precocious young coach that is really aggressive on the field, they're more aggressive than they've been in ages on the recruiting trail, all of those things. But I think, look, you beat Georgia, you beat Penn State. Georgia was the SEC champ. Penn State played for the Big Ten championship. Army ended up winning its conference. You wrecked them when they were undefeated. Navy was undefeated, and you wrecked them. Georgia Tech beat 3 teams ranked in the top 19 this year and took Georgia to 8 overtimes. You smoked them. I think the narrative around Notre Dame has absolutely changed. I think we've heard it like, T.O., you made the point of Roman Harper going into the Sugar Bowl talking about how much he loved the back 7 at Notre Dame. I think that's part of changing the narrative on Notre Dame is that what are they now, 2-0 this year against the SEC, as I noted, and then they're undefeated thus far against the Big Ten this year. I think the narrative's changed. And the positives, I think you take all those things as positive, and Marcus Freeman's going to talk about building for the future no matter what happens Monday night. Marcus Freeman will talk about how to continue to elevate the program and how to take it to additional levels. From a tangible standpoint, I think what you like is you bring a lot back. Yeah, you lose more valuable 5- and 6-year guys than probably any program in the country, although Ohio State is really old as well. But you've got some nice stuff to build around moving forward.
I think there's 2 questions in here, though, because if you think that the silence the haters is happening, Notre Dame can lose 28-27 in the greatest game that's ever happened, and that people are going to say they didn't belong in that game. If they get lit up, more people are going to come out of the woodwork that don't understand sports, football, or life.
Absolutely.
Notre Dame loses this game 34-7. They're not silencing crap. You have to win the game, and if you win the game, you're still going to have idiots that say, "Well, they got the easiest path there." You got to remember, don't listen to idiots.
Well, here's the other thing.
AC Irish, don't listen to idiots.
To live by.
Yes, the people are dumb. Most people are dumb. What does Douglas Farmer say? I'm quoting Douglas Farmer again. I hate people. People are idiots that watch.
I just hate people.
Yes. Let's leave it with that one. Remember, don't listen to people. They stink. They're bad at analyzing things. It's like the first year they ever watched a sporting event.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Me? It's
also you're thanking people for listening to Irish Illustrated Insider as well.
Yeah.
But look at the look at the history of the CFP championship games in the last several years. They've all been blowouts. I don't think there's been a really compelling championship game since that Clemson-Alabama contest of like 6 years ago.
Alabama-Georgia was pretty good.
Alabama-Georgia was great. Yep.
When was that, though?
17.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said 6 or 7 years ago.
That's a while back. Tim, slip in the other question you have there.
Irish Gambler, this is the check at the line of scrimmage with me. What aspect of the game concerns you most, and what are you most confident with?
I am most confident that Notre Dame can hold Ohio State to 20 points. I am extremely concerned about Notre Dame's ability to run the football, which would prevent them from outscoring Ohio State with their 20 to 24 points.
I'm most concerned about how many more extra damn questions we're going to add into this podcast.
That's it. That's
I might.
No, for me, it's my biggest concern is that quite literally Ohio State can score on any given offensive snap. And we can gravitate toward Jeremiah Smith because he's this transcendent freshman, but I can't get over Travion Henderson last week, arguably making the biggest offensive play of the game for Ohio State and running away from a Texas defense that's really fast, that has an All-American and Jadon Blue, I think, and guys that can flat out run and that will play at the next level. So for me, that is the most concerning element, is that Notre Dame could play perfect for a whole series or whatever, and Ohio State can erase that perfection in 3 seconds.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I do. It's interesting to look back at the Texas box score and see how much Ohio State like bogged down offensively. After I think they scored a touchdown on the first drive and then punted 4 straight times. Might be right about that. Before the Henderson score right before halftime. Yeah, their quick strike ability is Notre Dame hasn't played anybody like that this year, so that is my biggest concern. Well, that's a huge concern. But I guess I'm almost maybe more concerned that Notre Dame is going to get into one of those offensive lulls, and by the time they get out of it, it's going to be too late. So that sort of bleeds into the next question we have coming up.
They cannot absorb explosives. I have a fair high degree of confidence that they will avoid that, but I understand what you guys are saying. We have one more question, and we're going to go to prediction.
I was going to answer too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim. I'm
JB,
sorry.
I 100% agree with JB, and I feel like one explosive is coming and it changes the game. I feel like the number one thing that concerns me is one 65-yard touchdown that you haven't seen against Notre Dame, because no one's been capable of it, and Notre Dame's great at defense, but Ohio State's great at offense. I am confident that Notre Dame will play its very best possible game.
Yeah, I am too, and that's all you can. I mean, that's all you can ask for, really, at the end of the day. Our last question before we get to predictions is from Kay Beasley. What's more important in this game, scoring the second touchdown rule, which is Tim O'Malley's, or winning the middle eight, which is JB's?
I want to combine them. And Notre Dame scoring the second
touchdown
in the middle eight. Both. Done. Combine them right there. Score the second touchdown in the middle eight.
Well, I've already said, as crazy as it is, I'm a believer Notre Dame really needs to win the coin toss and start the evening that way. I know it's laughable, but it's how Notre Dame.
No, it makes sense as it relates
because
to
of the second
eight.
half. It's not like they have to score to start the game. They have to have that middle eight to their advantage. Because if it's 0-0 to start the second quarter, it's advantage Notre Dame. Huge.
Yeah, if they win. Yeah.
If it's 0-0 starting the second quarter and Notre Dame won the coin toss, it's advantage Notre Dame by a big margin, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's both. They need to score the second touchdown during the middle eight.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect. It's just tell Freeman something. Let them know. I don't know why they score other times. Grace, you have a different idea on that one, or you agree with that?
No, I think that's. I think you guys have it figured out. I think you have it figured out quite well. But the second TD rule is an old O'Malley precept, so I'm a little bit biased towards that. But the way that John has continued to explain throughout the season, Notre Dame's advantage as it continued to escalate. Obviously that's a big part of it too. But hey, I'm all for combining them and maximizing that as much as we possibly can.
They combined it in both. They combined it in both the Georgia and the Penn State games. They scored the second touchdown in the middle eight.
There we go. All right.
Yes.
All right. Let's predict this game.
All right. I'll go
angst
first.
And awful. Yeah, just angst for 3 hours for Irish fans. Go ahead, Pete.
I have Notre Dame winning 21-20. I think that they will drag Ohio State into a game that Ohio State is not comfortable playing. And Ohio State will start to feel a little bit of like Michigan vibes when it's 17-13 in the third quarter or 17-13 early in the fourth quarter. I think if this game was played 10 times, Ohio State would probably win it 7 times. I just think this is going to be one of the other 3. And it would be, if Notre Dame had just lived on turnovers and special teams fluky plays, and like it just happened a couple times this year, I would feel maybe a little bit differently than the fact that it happens every damn week. And that's just sort of how Notre Dame is wired. So I don't see that changing on Monday night. And if you can get out of the first quarter, I think Notre Dame will put some pressure on Ohio State that makes Ohio State uncomfortable. And it's a very narrow path to victory for Notre Dame, but they've navigated this path before. I think they navigated that path the last 2 weeks. And so we'll see if they can do it a third time against Ohio State, but I got Notre Dame 21-20.
I haven't settled on my final score yet, but I am also picking Notre Dame. Again, I think Notre Dame has to be +2 in turnovers, which is the same thing I said on the field before the Sugar Bowl, and they were +2, and that's really why they won the game. But, I'm not picking against this Notre Dame team anymore, even though there's only one opportunity left in the season to do so, because they've shown me that there's something special about this group. There's something special about the season that they've put together. And Riley Leonard is that guy for me. Like, he's waiting on the moment, but the moment's not too big for him. Just listening to him yesterday at Media Day, talking about how much he's grown. And like another story I've got coming on Irish Illustrated is kind of the evolution of Riley Leonard inside his recruitment to Duke, and some fascinating stories from his coaches at Duke that we're going to share with you guys and gals. So anyway, I'm picking Notre Dame. I'm picking Notre Dame close. Probably think they have to score more than 21 points to win. So I'll have a little bit more in my score than that. But I am picking Notre Dame to win.
I am picking Ohio State in that 28-20, 27-20 range. I guess it matters since there's a hook there if you care about the ATS at this point. So putting a lot on the line here, 14-1, 12-3. Going to lose it all here, hopefully, if Notre Dame wins. But, Pete, I like your score if Notre Dame gets out of the first quarter at 0-0
Yes.
or 3-0 is fine. Unfortunately, I think the reason I'm picking Ohio State is that big play happens early. Notre Dame plays great, and that big play happens late. And that's why I think Ohio State will get them with two. Kind of the first one they haven't seen this. This is a different level of offense from everybody. So I have Ohio State in the 27-20 range. Love the idea of a 3-0 first quarter. Fight for that second touchdown later.
We'll take that. Yeah, we'll definitely take that. Well, you already heard my score. It's 24-20. And look, you've heard me say before, I don't believe in jinxes. I think that's silly. I mean, that doesn't play a role. But somehow I feel like I'm believing in that this time around, because I feel like if I pick Notre Dame to win as an 8-point underdog in a national championship game, that I'm going to regret that. And so I am open to all the torment that people have as I cry myself to sleep in joy. So I'm going to pick Ohio State 24-20. And, I'm not declaring my allegiance towards Ohio State or anything like that. But
no need to apologize. There's nobody.
People won't bring this up forever and ever.
I understand. I'm putting way too much value on what my opinion is here. But gun to head, okay? Your life depends on it. Pick the winner. Who would you pick?
I don't like this premise, Tim.
Well, I understand, and of course, fortunately,
I just pick how I look at football games every time I pick them. So that's easy.
I mean, that's my hedge. There is saying, like, if they played this game 10 times, Ohio State.
I agree with that. And does Notre Dame have the magic, and do they have every intangible motivational thing that they need to do this? Absolutely. And I would not be shocked or surprised that Notre Dame wins this football game, but gun to head, your life depended upon it. The odds to me say that Ohio State's going to win the football game 24-20. And when I'm standing on a field crying in joy, I'm going to be the happiest man in the world for being wrong.
I like to point out I don't care what people think about my picks, and that's why I make them. So I hope everybody's mad at this one. I really hope it's wrong 100%. And you know why I can do that? Because I don't affect the outcome of the games. If I did, they never would have lost to Northwestern in 2014.
All right.
Well, double-digit two-score underdog was 2014. That's why I said 2014. So there you go.
These are our last predictions of the year. That much we are sure of, and it's it's going to be great. Looking forward to it, as I said, right over our shoulder here is Mercedes-Benz Stadium Monday night when Notre Dame takes on Ohio State. Until then, you look for our pregame analysis, of course. Until then, Tim Priester, Tim O'Malley, John Bryce, and Pete Sampson. This has been Irish Illustrated Insider.